fewer young people get to directly influence issues that might affect their lives for years to come. Use the most powerful tool to speak your voice. Vote. No vote, no voice. All votes matter. If you register to vote, but your name does not appear on the precinct voter registration list, or if you are unable to comply with identification requirements, you have a right to cast a provisional ballot after signing an affirmation that you are a registered voter in the county and are eligible to vote in that election. If your vote is challenged by a poll watcher, you have the right to cast a provisional ballot that will be set aside by the election officials in a special envelope until the Election Commission determines whether the ballot may be counted. You also have the right to be informed in writing of whether or not your ballot was counted, and if not, the reason it was not counted. Don't let your right to vote be challenged. Vote. No vote, no voice. All votes matter.
It's 10:03.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning again, everyone. You are tuned in to the second part of Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. I'm your host, Wheeler Jones, along with Leganzi Kell here, and our guest for this hour is Ms. or Mrs.? Mrs. Mary Lile Broadaway.
That's correct.
And she is running for Circuit Judge Division 7. Good morning to you.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We are providing these interviews for informational purposes, so we have to give the disclaimer. KLEK does not support, endorse, or oppose any candidate. This interview is provided for informational purposes only. All right.
But we do encourage you to step into the voting booth and vote. Election day is March 3rd. Early voting is February 17th.
All right, so without further ado, we would like for you to please give us an introduction of yourself, tell us a little bit about your family, and then we'll transition to your background and experience and qualifications to run for circuit judge.
May I please say something first before
Yes,
I get into myself?
Yes, ma'am.
That is, I really commend you all, Leganzi, for being present at debates locally, for giving people opportunities to speak, introduce themselves, because these races are vitally important. A lot of times people are not super engaged in judicial races, but I'm sure that some folks have already told you, but it's helpful to reassert positions to the public that judges are some of the most important things that people will vote on. And this is a highly unusual time in the state because so many new people will be on the bench. There are 122 circuit judges in Arkansas. The legislature created 5 new positions, which means there's 127. There will be 43 of them that will be new on the bench.
Wow.
In this judicial district, that's the 2nd judicial district, we are losing 4 of our best, most experienced judges who have been on the bench the longest time. And so it is really important for the public to be aware of why this is so important.
Okay.
And so I do commend you all for allowing us to speak and for your efforts to educate the public.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. I mean, and I enjoy coming to the various forums and hearing from the candidates, and we love to serve here. And of course, as a programmer note, thank you for the segue, we will be live at 12 noon from Political Animals, featuring a debate between Senator John Cooper and Representative Dan Sullivan. That's going to go live at 12 noon, so just watch our Facebook live feed for that.
Super. I'll be there too.
All right. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into you, like where were you raised and your practice and your family and things of that nature.
Okay, super. I like to talk about that. I like to say I'm a dual citizen.
Okay.
Because I was born and raised in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Okay.
My grandfather, who I was a late in life child, so we're talking about even the Depression, but was the very first dentist in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Okay.
And then my father was a dentist, a World War II veteran, and then he practiced dentistry here, and then he went back and got his degree in oral surgery, and he was the first oral surgeon in Northeast Arkansas.
Okay.
But he has no brothers, and I have no brothers, and so my maiden name is no longer around very much.
Okay.
But I graduated from Jonesboro High School. I married my high school sweetheart, Brad Broadaway.
Okay.
We dated in high school. We reconvened in law school in Fayetteville, and he was a year ahead of me. So he got a job in Paragould and took me up to Paragould, Arkansas on a temporary basis. And 31 years later, we find ourselves there. We love Paragould. It's a wonderful community. But our siblings are down in Jonesboro.
Okay.
So we still have a whole lot of close connection here.
Okay.
Brad is my husband's name. His father, Stanley, owned the Broadaway packing company here and employed a tremendous amount of individuals in the 60s, 70s, and 80s before it closed. And so that is who he is.
Okay.
And we have 3 children.
Okay.
Jack, who is 27. And one way that Brad and I are frankly known is because at the beginning of the autism tide, our firstborn was diagnosed with autism. And we have made it an important part of our lives to advocate for him, to try to help others also who find themselves in this position. And Jack is our success story.
Okay.
He lives in Little Rock. We live in Paragould, so we kind of took a leap of faith, letting him spread his wings. He lives in a condominium with a roommate. He has a job. He has a girlfriend. He has a life. And that's what we want for our children: happiness, quality of life, a sense of community, and our son has that. He has significant deficits that make him function at an intellectually disabled level, which is defined as like a 70 IQ.
Okay.
But he actually is he's very bright. He just has processing and oral communication deficits that bring that functioning down. He can't drive, he can't manage his money, but I think a lot of us have difficulties with managing our money, so that's not too terrible. Then I have a middle child. Witt is his name.
Okay.
He is in the Honors College at Arkansas State. He is an awesome young man, finishing his degree in accounting and going in for his master's in accountancy, and it's just precious and delightful. We're very proud of him. And then we have the queen of the universe in Paragould High School at 17, and her name is Lile, and she is a delight.
Okay.
And so we are very, very fortunate parents.
All right. And so we'll get back to, your first child and ask the question centered around disabilities or mental disabilities in relation to cases you may try. So we'll put a pin in that and come back to that.
You bet.
But we want to talk about your experience as an attorney. I see on your flyer you've been practicing for 30 years. So tell us what side of the law are you or have you been practicing?
Lots.
What side of it was in terms of an attorney?
Sure. Honestly, all over the place. But I will tell you about my history. I started out working, actually, I hung my shingle fresh out of law school, and that was a challenge. And I was not the first, but the only female attorney for a significant period of time in in Greene County, Clay County, Independence County, and Randolph and Lawrence.
Okay.
And so being a female, I attracted a lot of women and a lot of family law types of cases. But I then was brought into a law firm, and I handled child support enforcement for them. And for that period of time, it was privatized, and we were one of the largest collectors of child support. This was late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
After that, I just did a variety of work. I was known as a domestic relations attorney, and but represented men and women. I became known, frankly, for helping men obtain custody of their children.
Okay.
But probably almost 50-50 as far as representing men and women. I also did some criminal defense work.
Okay.
I've done a lot of DHS and juvenile work. Most of that, or much of that, was early in my career. Then, I don't know, I think many lawyers will tell you that domestic relations is very hard work. It's very personally taxing. And so I stepped away from that for a period of time, and I became the city attorney for Corning. And that was really exciting because I got to deal with public servants and issues that direct cities as clients, as opposed to a single individual.
Okay.
And I prosecuted district court cases.
Okay.
During that time also, because of my son, I did a tremendous amount of Social Security disability work.
Okay.
And I did a lot of debtor bankruptcy work. I found that we live in an impoverished area where a lot of people do not have medical insurance. Now, I'm talking about this perhaps prior to the private option Arkansas Works that increased that. But at that time, I did not find that people were abusing consumer issue, running up their credit cards and trying to discharge them. So many people were put into bankruptcy because of their inability to pay their medical bills, which is a problem, and perhaps some of that has been resolved. But those are areas that I've worked in, and then you'll probably talk about this, but after my journey into being a city attorney, I decided to run for the State House of Representatives, and was in the House of Representatives for 2 terms. Did a lot of, I think, work that I'm proud of. My signature piece, and we'll put a pin in it, but was advocating for people with disabilities.
Okay, so we definitely, and that's an area that's important to me because I have a disability, but we'll get into that.
Sure.
So, but we definitely would love to get back to that. I do also want to point out, you stated, I've been active on numerous boards for the improvement of my community and profession, and so we'll just start with that. Because of your involvement in the community and your legal background, how do you feel that has prepared you for the position you're running for?
Well, being involved in various boards and being involved for different things in the community, I think is very important to one's overall development as a person and a citizen. And I think that we have a responsibility to contribute to our communities. Just to give you a couple of examples, again, I was on the board of directors for the Learning Center, which is a school for children with disabilities. I served on the Greene County Community Fund. I was a Rotarian. I served the Paragould Chamber of Commerce, something that I love that doesn't really prepare me to be a judge, but I worked on Main Street Paragould, which is the development for our downtown, and helped develop the Art and Stroll, which was a cultural event, which introduced a lot of local artists and music and things to Paragould, and that was a really fun thing that I enjoyed doing. That was just something that, again, you get to know your community, you get to know people, you understand their interest, their passions, and that's very important when you're on the bench. I think that being a judge does not remove your humanity from you, and you have to be objective, and you have to look at the person, and I think separate the act from the person. And I think that helps one very much in being able to be firm, fair, but also empathetic and compassionate. I think that a judgeship requires that. I think that's important. Something that I also, two things that I left out on my credentials that are both important to me, and they're exciting to me, is when I told you about Social Security, disability, and bankruptcy, that's actually federal court.
Okay.
And circuit court is a state court position, and circuit judges hear such a variety of cases. But those other two areas in federal court, those are areas where I represented people who desperately needed help, and were downtrodden and had real gutsy issues. Now, again, that's true in circuit court, but I think that it's important to understand and know the difference of an administrative agency and administrative judge who are the first contact in federal court. But what I'm telling you is because one of those cases, I was assisting a lady whose husband attempted to discharge a lot of their marital debt in bankruptcy and left her holding the bag.
Okay.
We appealed that up to the 8th Circuit, and I actually got to go and argue in front of the 8th Circuit federal court, and we won that case. And he was unable to discharge those debts, and he did not. His bankruptcy petition was denied. So I felt wonderful in being able to help that woman.
That's awesome.
The other thing that's really a huge honor is that I was appointed by the Arkansas Supreme Court to be a law examiner. And what that means, I did that from 2006 to 2012, so it was quite a while ago, and things have changed. But when I started, the committee, the Board of Law Examiners, we actually formulated the questions that people had to answer when they took the bar examination. And we formulated the questions, and we graded the bar exams. And then we also sat in on hearings for attorneys that had violated the Code of Professional Ethics. And that's very important. So although that's not a judicial position, it is a position where I was looked at to make determinations about people's futures and whether they would pay penalties, whether they would be reprimanded, or things of that nature. So I think that's a wonderful thing to kind of add to my resume to help with my experience to be a circuit judge.
That is really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the live feed?
Shout out to Scott Wilhite, who is watching on our Facebook live feed. We don't have any questions just yet, but if you do have a question or comment for Mrs. Broadway, you can give us a call at 870-277-1080, or you can leave your questions or your comments on our Facebook live feed.
Well, we'll go ahead and get into the mental health issues and disability issues, because that has been a recurring question all week. How, if you are elected judge, how will you advocate for, or I guess make rulings on how will you try to assist individuals that are facing those mental health issues, disability issues, financial issues, helping to assist them with rehab versus just throwing them in prison if their option is available, depending on what their crime is.
Okay, first of all, I want to tell you, and I'm not trying to sideline, Leganzi has heard this before, but ethically, judicial candidates...
All right, we have a call. KLK, you're live on the air.
Good morning, this is Don Mullins again. I've got a follow-up for Scott Ellington, just a brief question.
Well, right now we have Mrs. Broadway on, so if you could, please ask the question to Mrs. Broadway. Do you have a question for Mrs. Broadway, Mr. Mullenix?
Yes, I was just asking a question. On the video that Mr. Chief Elliott sent out on behalf of the Jonesboro Police Department, it showed in there where my son had shackles on him, he was handcuffed, and he was unconscious, and his shackles got tied up under a table, and one of the police officers for the Jonesboro Street Crime Unit in the video was sitting in there. You can see him. He's kicking his legs out from, instead of reaching down and getting the leg arms out from under the kitchen table, the officer is actually sitting there, and you sit on video, he's kicking his legs instead of reaching down to get the leg arms out that was wrapped around the one of the chairs. And if I came down to the prosecuting attorney's office, if he looked at the video and saw that was assault on a unconscious mental patient, would he file charges against that individual or just let it go?
Well, unfortunately, he's not here to answer that. But okay, but is this what does this have to do with Mrs. Broadway?
Well, it doesn't have any. I thought Mr. Ellington was still on.
No, sir. We have Mary Lile Broadway on right now, sir. But thank you for the call. I apologize for that.
That's quite all right. I understand.
Well,
and that broke our train of thought. But I think I can go back and kind of pick it up.
Well, in essence, his question kind of ties, even though it was directed for someone else, in a case where there is someone that is suffering from a mental illness and there may be thoughts that excessive force was used, or I don't know all the details of that case, so I can't speak on that. But if you were a judge and you had a similar case come before you, what could you do?
Okay. What I was going to say is, and I'm going to answer your question,
Okay.
but I've got to preface something here. Judicial judges and judicial candidates are very limited about what they can say as far as commitments, what they're going to do, speak to specific things. But I can tell you, I can make some general statements to you.
That's fine.
I believe, very frankly, and I will bring this back to a personal level. I had a sibling who was a wonderful person. She had a very significant mental disability that also created addiction issues. And it was extremely difficult for our family to deal with. And there is a crisis that we have in treating people with mental illnesses. And we do not need, in my opinion, to treat those individuals the same with the same level that we have someone that has a well mental state.
Okay.
Because mental illness people do not understand often the ramifications of their actions, where people that are neurotypical may offend for other reasons, but it would not be mental illness. So I think that we have one. I think that it would be wonderful if we could. Judges don't control it, the legislature does, but create more mental health courts. Is that a break?
Yeah, we're up against the break. Can I cover Facebook? Shout out to Hard Weinstock and Christy Wilson. Thank you all for checking in on our Facebook Live feed. And of course, we will be back with more from Mrs. Mary Lile Broadway, candidate for Circuit Judge, Division 2, Division 7 at large. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
KLEK thanks CJ Pepper and the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life, such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
Hello, I'm Officer Victoria Evans. I have always had a desire to help others in need and to be an example and role model to young women by encouraging them to never give up on their dreams. My dream was to become a police officer and to serve my community. In 2016, that dream became a reality, and it is the most rewarding experience of my life. Now I want to let you know about the same opportunity. The Jonesboro Police Department will conduct testing every month for patrol officers. Applications are available online at jonesboropolice.com or at the Police Department, 1001 South Caraway Work. The Jonesboro Police Department offers a competitive salary, health, and retirement benefits, top-of-the-line training, and most importantly, the chance to make a difference in the Jonesboro community. Join me in making Jonesboro a better place. The Jonesboro Police Department is an equal opportunity employer, and women and minorities are especially encouraged to apply. More information is available at 870-935-5657.
Do you like the music you hear on KLEK 102.5 FM? Do you like the educational programming that we provide? Do you like the service we provide to the community? Do you like having a station to finally call your own that represents you? If so, please stop by or call any of our underwriters or sponsors that you hear on KLEK and tell them thank you for their support. The support of our underwriters and sponsors is vital for us to stay on the air, so be sure to let them know that you thank them for their support.
It's important for citizens to know how to operate voting machines or to mark the ballots they'll be using when they vote so that their votes will be counted. And why is that so important? Because every vote counts. An election might be decided by a single vote, and history would be changed because a person got or lost that one vote. Every vote counts. No vote, no voice. All votes matter.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM with our guest, Mrs. Mary Lile Broadaway, candidate for Circuit Judge Division 7, District 2, and that is an at-large position. And, of course, if you have a question or a comment for Mrs. Broadaway, you can give us a call at 870-277-1080, or you can leave your questions or your comments on our Facebook Live feed. Let's do a quick check-in, see if we have anything
I have a
new.
Anonymous question.
Okay, well, give me just a moment. Okay, don't see anything on the feed, so cue what you got.
Okay, as a judge, how would you like to see violent mental patients? I think we kind of got into how violent mental patients handled. Should they be handled by police or by special trained therapists from the mental health field?
Well, ideally, it would be wonderful for them to be handled by a special therapist, though the therapist may also need that police protection. Again, the issue and problems that we have are often lack of funding and lack of support for innovative ways to treat these special populations, veterans, mentally ill, drug courts. Those are all wonderful things, but they require resources to be effective, and we just often don't have enough money to put in to support those things.
Well, on a local level, and not necessarily just the judge, but everyone involved in the legal system, what can be done to advocate to the state to say, okay, this is what we need. Here are the issues in our county, district, whatever, division. We need these things. So what can be done from top down on the district level?
Well, what you're talking about is lobbying the legislature.
Okay.
And various groups have strong lobbyists to do that. Again, the issue, and having been a state representative, Arkansas is to be commended in that they balance their budget.
Okay.
We do not spend more than we have, but we're a poor state. And so it's very difficult for the governor, for the legislature to walk a tightrope to satisfy individuals who that want to cut taxes, that feel they're paying more than their share, that feel like that the state is too fat, that there is waste and abuse. And there's that fine line, but also we require so much money to educate our children, for our police protection, for our long-term care, and there's just such a small pie, and people don't want to, and I understand. I don't want to either. But the solution to these things would be raising taxes, and there is not the will or desire to do that. So it's actually kind of a do more with less situation. We've got to be leaner and meaner, and when you're dealing with people with the profound problems that our offenders have, that's just very difficult. I would say, and this is not something that a judge does, so I'm getting out in the weeds a little bit, but we have to figure out how to employ more people. And we have a very high employment, we have a low unemployment rate, but the most effective way to treat the seriously mentally ill, and there's data that supports this all over the place, is to find them a job. And if you find them a job, they're going to offend less in the criminal system. They're going to be medically, physically healthier. They are going to be more prone to take their meds.
Okay.
And so if we could figure out a way to get folks employed, then that would help with some of our other problems. It's holistic.
Okay.
And it's very hard right now for judges to be able to order someone to go to work or do this or that. So anyway, that's one solution that we could employ.
So I guess that'll be definitely a discussion we'll have when we have the state representative.
Yes, absolutely.
When those individuals come on, we can extend that conversation.
Oh, and Mrs. Is it Broadway or Broadaway?
It's Broadaway.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
I
I actually had
I'm
an
sorry.
anonymous person say we got the name spelled wrong, so we did fix it on our live feed.
I apologize.
But unfortunately, our graphics are already done. We can't make new graphic on the fly, so we do apologize for the misspelling of the name.
You know, if I had a penny for every time that had happened, I might be a rich woman. I am not hung up at all on that. It dropped a.
I'm
So
so
no
sorry.
worries.
All right. So no questions on the live feed.
Let me look. I had to refresh it since making that correction.
All right.
No, we have no new questions or shout-outs right as of this
Okay.
moment.
Well, may I speak about something that
Sure.
I think is important?
This is your forum.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that there is a lot of interest, but perhaps misconception about an issue that I think is important.
Okay.
And I would like to kind of clear up things.
Please.
There is a lot of talk about whether a judicial candidate, is a judicial conservative, a judicial activist, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And that is very important.
Well, Mrs. Broadaway, could you define those terms?
Yeah.
I'd be delighted to.
Because
yes,
you know, 'cause
sure,
a lot of our listeners may not like, what's that?
Yeah. Oh no. And thanks for that, Legansy. It's when our Constitution was drafted. It is a document that has lasted now for 240 years.
Okay.
And of course, we have amended the Constitution, but there are two ways of viewing the Constitution, and one of them is that it is both I think it's a sacred document, but it is a sacred document that was drafted, and it was drafted for a person for a purpose, and it does not need to be changed.
Okay.
Our founders created what they wanted to create it, and that should be adhered to and not changed. And the other view of the Constitution is that it's a living, breathing document, and it should be modified and changed as the times developed.
Okay.
Now, a judicial conservative has the first view, that we don't need to be messing with what the founding fathers did. It is a document that controls and needs to be adhered to. The judicial activists think that it is a document that should be changed and interpreted in accordance with the times. I will tell you that this is very important and why it's important, but you have to have an understanding of the layers of the judiciary.
Okay.
And there is currently in Arkansas a hotly contested Supreme Court race where the two candidates are viewed in different ways or asked, are you a conservative or are you an activist?
Oh.
Okay? A circuit judge job is not to be a judicial conservative or activist. A circuit judge is not the first level of the judiciary. That would be a district judge.
Okay.
But the circuit judge is the first court where the proceedings are reported. And a circuit judge must and swears to follow the United States Constitution, the Arkansas State Constitution, and very importantly, the laws of the state of Arkansas.
Okay.
And circuit judges don't have it's not their job, and they don't have the ability to change the law. So I can tell you without qualification that I will be a judicial conservative because it wouldn't be my job to be anything else as a circuit judge. But if someone does not agree with the ruling of a circuit judge, then they appeal that ruling to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. And those are the judges that you want to know their view. Are you a conservative or an activist? But because I don't believe it's the job of a circuit judge to change the law or to create policy. That's the legislature, that's the appellate courts. Then I'm without a doubt a judicial conservative.
And on a side note, we have reached out to both of those Supreme Court candidates. We do have one confirmed that will appear later, I believe either this month or maybe possibly next month. I don't have the calendar in front of me, and we're still waiting word from the other candidate.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you.
as you're talking, I'm hearing that we, especially here at the station, need to have a broader conversation about government, civics. I know we took it in elementary, junior high, high school, whatever, but as adults, I think we've lost some of that information of what is actually done on what level and what's possible and real. So again, we have to start having those conversations again.
And I commend you for that. Everybody needs that. At Kiwanis the other day, we were asked about what we would do as judges to try to help with educating the public about the judicial system and about what we do. And you know, I'm someone, I laughed, but because of my child with a disability, early intervention is a catchphrase that I use a lot. But it's very important that I think we return back to our roots about the importance of civics. It is amazing to me. My daughter is 17 years old, and last year when she was 16, she was in an upper level American history civics course, advanced placement. And she and one other girl in her class of 30 people could tell who our governor, our president, and her mayor were. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Wow.
So we are, and teachers, I think teachers are some of the most undervalued individuals in our society. I think they need to be paid more. I think they are overwhelmed by paperwork and often don't get to do what they're supposed to do, which is teach. So I'm not being critical of our teachers or our curriculum. Well, I am being a little critical of our curriculum, and that I feel like it is vitally necessary to go back and emphasize how our country came about, why the policies, the rules, the constitutions, and the branches of government and the separation of powers. Those things are important for people to understand, and maybe if they did, they might tend to be a little bit more engaged in their participating in the government, participating in their communities.
Okay.
And on a side note, just I can say that I've been in the same room with the mayor, the governor, and the president. Of course, not all at the same time.
Oh, that would have been a feat all at the same time.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and swing back around with the conversation, and then being a parent,
yes.
You know, and having the experience you've had in the courtroom. Let's talk about your experience with juveniles, because that has been a question as well throughout the week. As a judge, like, what role would you try to play in rehab again versus imprisonment when it comes to juveniles?
I will tell you that when I ran for state representative, making a difference right here at home was my slogan. And because somewhat of my son, I feel that it's vitally important to try to, when someone has been given the opportunities that I have, you have a duty to pay back, and you have a duty to make a difference in the lives of people. So I think that it's very important for many of our juveniles that we deal with to be dealt with in juvenile court, and again to look. You know, judges are limited. I went with you. We've got to abide by the law. We've got to stick to the rules, that sort of things. But have suggestions from other professionals about effective ways to deal with them. However, there are some juveniles that, for whatever reason, have overstepped the line. They have created, or they have committed heinous offenses. And there are provisions that they must be charged as adults, and they must be dealt with accordingly. there is a huge difference to me between a child that is 11, 12, 13 and one that is 17 and a half, as far as appreciating the ramifications of their actions. But when you're dealing with juveniles, you can't have a policy about juveniles. You have to look at every child and their circumstances and use your wisdom, and it's hard, but to act accordingly.
Okay. All right. Look at the time. Okay. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're speaking with Miss Mary Lile Broadaway, who was running for Circuit Judge Division. Oh, sorry.
District 2, Division 7 at large.
I guess I put my glasses on. So we do thank you for giving us your time and share this information. And we know again that you are limited in what you can say, because when you're not in the position, so you can say, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, because that can come back to bite you if you pre-stated all of these things and then you actually win, and then people are going to be looking at you to say, okay, well, you said you were going to do this. So I understand you have to be very conscious about your statements.
Well, let's have a little bit of fun with it. Maybe she can answer this one.
Oh, okay.
We know that you can't say what you would do if you in the position if you win, but what would you do on election night if you win? How would you celebrate?
I love that. But being a politician, you run unopposed, or you run scared as can be.
Now, where did we just hear that one before? I know. It's just ironic.
It's the old saying, but it's really, really true. And so I'm really not going to do something big and splashy. I'm going to have my family around me, and we are going to be low key. We're going to be excited, but I feel that it's a little bit of a private thing. Okay. The next day, if I win, I'm probably going to be, I might throw a little party. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you something else. I win, lose, or draw, I'm going to the beach March 6th.
Well, there you go. We hope you have, win or lose, we definitely hope that you enjoy your time at the beach.
Thank you. If I could say this, I don't know if you've heard this, and it's not a rule. It's just kind of the way reality rolls. We are, and when I say we, the 2nd Judicial District is the largest geographic judicial district in the state. It's 6 counties.
Yeah, I think one of the other candidates says it's like bigger than the state of Delaware.
It is. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. And so lawyers pretty much divide the district just because of the travel and that sort of thing. So lawyers in Green, Clay, and Craighead usually practice in those counties and handle cases against each other, and then Crittenden, Poinsett, Mississippi. And that has been true with me. And so I have had the opportunity to go and visit with folks in those other counties. And that is, win, lose, or draw, it has been so exciting to meet people in counties where I don't know, and there are fantastic people in Mississippi County, Crittenden County, Poinsett County, very efficient court officials over there. The mayor of Blyville is a rock star. The sheriff of Crittenden County, the mayor of West Memphis, and I'm not trying to leave people out because there's so many more that I have met, but there are some outstanding individuals in the other part of the district, and I've been privileged to get over and get to meet them, and that's been a really gratifying thing.
Okay. Now I want to ask you this, because we had this discussion with Scott, and with you having a child with, I don't want to say disabilities, but
it's a disability.
Okay.
I mean that's not a politically incorrect term. Okay.
And then having the experience you've had with the individuals you work with, especially those in the low socioeconomic status, Scott mentioned about how important diversity is. And this is not just a black versus white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, but diversity all around, where to the best of your ability, the communities are represented. How important is that to you?
It's enormously important to me, and I want to tell you why. Before I decided to run for judge, I'd been working on a project for a period of time I believe that people with disabilities are our last civil rights frontier. And people that look different from us or behave differently from us are often marginalized and set aside. And we are never going to be able to include them and they really be part of us until we proactively include them. And again, I've been hung up on this, but it's through employment.
Okay.
And if you employ someone, you escalate the quality of their life. And so absolutely, when kids get all the support when they are diagnosed up through when they complete high school, and then they fall off the services cliff, and we do not do a good enough job about employing and including individuals into our society when they are very capable. We look at the disability instead of the ability. And so absolutely positively, we must try harder to include people that are different from us. And so and disabilities is my thing, but gender, race, ethnicity, all of those things, we must strive to include people. We just really should do that. I mean, nobody is superior or above the other. Now, does that
means we're getting ready?
That means we're getting up against a break.
Okay. So if you want to just pause right there, and then we'll pick it up on the other side.
Okay.
All right, we are speaking with Mrs. Mary Lile Broadaway, Circuit Judge Candidate, Division 7, District 2 at-large position. We're going to get ready to go into our final break, but don't go anywhere. This is Community Conversations on KLEK on 2.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Do you know the name Bessie Coleman? This is April for Focus on Women. In school, most of us learned about Amelia Earhart. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, a feat she accomplished in 1928. And some think she was the first American woman to gain a pilot's license. But do you know about Bessie Coleman? Queen Bessie was an African-American aviator. When there was no flying school in the U.S. that would admit her, she learned French and traveled to France to learn to fly. Not only was she the first black woman in the world to receive a pilot's license, she was the first black person to receive an international pilot's license. In fact, she received her international pilot's license almost 2 years before Amelia Earhart. Queen Bessie's claim to fame was her Daredevil Air Show, where she would perform stunts and maneuvers to crowds of all races. In addition, she gave lectures on aviation and worked to raise money to establish a school for black flyers. The important takeaway from Queen Bessie's life is that she did not fall victim to the no syndrome. She wanted a pilot's license and found a way to earn it, even if that meant learning another language and moving to another country. So when we think the world is keeping us from reaching our dreams, find a way and channel Miss Bessie. For Focus on Women, this is April Anderson, hoping you will stay dynamic.
Focus on Women is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
KLEK is a nonprofit community radio station and has to rely on the support of listeners like you to continue to give a voice to the community. For the cost of a meal for two, just $20 a month will go a long way to ensure you will get the music and information you need. Please take a moment and fund your support to KLEK. Every donation will help us continue this radio station, giving local people a voice on the airwaves. Our goal is to get 100 new donors. Please consider donating. No donation is too small. Learn more at klekfm.org. This portion of KLEK programming can be made possible by your business. Your support will help in educating, entertaining, and empowering the community by supporting local talent, serving the community you love, and providing information on issues you care about from a different perspective. Call 870-203-9951 or visit klekfm.org to learn how we can help connect you more with the community.
If you or your organization is hosting a community service event, we would like to know about it and be a part of it. KLEK will promote your event on air, online, and on social media. KLEK personalities may also attend the event and provide music and or entertainment. Certain restrictions and availability may apply. Call 870-277-1080 or email us at klek@klekfm.org. We ask that the announcement be sent at minimum 1 week in advance. Did you know that KLEK 102.5 FM is a non-profit organization? Did you know that you can donate to KLEK 102.5 FM and your donation is tax deductible? Donations to non-profit organizations such as KLEK can reduce the amount of taxes you may owe the IRS or increase the amount of any potential tax refund. Support your KLEK today. You can donate by calling 870-277-1080, visiting our studio at 1411 Franklin Street in Jonesboro, or on our website www.klekfm.org. We at KLEK 102.5 FM are blessed and grateful for your support. KLEK 102.5 FM salutes small businesses. Small businesses promote local character and success, keeping money in the local economy, local jobs, entrepreneurship, community well-being, and so much more. Contact us today to learn more on how your small business could be featured on KLEK for as little as $25 per month.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM with our final segment with Mrs. Mary Lile Broadaway, candidate for Circuit Judge, District 2, Division 7 at large. You still got a couple more minutes to get your questions or your comments on our Facebook Live feed.
All right, so in this last segment, let's just wrap up with how your experience, for those that may have missed the beginning, how your experience in the legal field has prepped you for the position of circuit judge if you were elected.
If I was fortunate enough to be elected, I think it is critical that circuit judges have a vast variety of legal experience. Okay. I have virtually touched almost every subject or been involved in so many different types of cases over the last 31 years. Okay. Again, I have prosecuted, I have defended, I've represented men, women, children, cities. I have been served on the Board of Law Examiners. I have argued cases in front of the 8th Federal Circuit. So it's important that I have touched those types of things. I have dealt with clients in all kinds of matters, when they've lost family members, when they've had financial problems, when they've had problems with Social Security disability, getting their benefits, going through divorces, going through child custody. And all of those things have opened my eyes to the plights of what individuals go through. And our best judges, in my experience, are people who have lived life. They are real people, and they have had their real problems. And I have faced those types of things. Having to deal with an elderly parent when you have to say, you can't drive anymore. Mm-hmm. Or we need your power of attorney so we can help manage your money. And dealing with people who have lost their children. And all of those things are extremely important to have walked the walk or walk the walk with somebody. Okay. If I haven't. So I think those types of things will make me a good judge. I also, having been in the legislature, I understand how laws are made. Mm-hmm. And being a lawyer, being in the legislature, you understand the ramifications of laws when they're passed. And there's a lot of laws going on down there that shouldn't be passed, and a lot of times they're killed, luckily, because people do understand the ramifications. but you also have to understand what your job is. And your job as a circuit judge is to follow the law and not to try to change the law, not to try to implement policy, but to also be compassionate with individuals, to be firm but be fair, and try to understand the ramifications of your actions as a judge and the impact that they have on individuals.
And then you stated, which is on your flyer, and you also have a Facebook page.
Yes.
And so individuals can check that out to get to know more about you. But also you had talked about your involvement in the community. So if you were elected to judge, how or if will your engagement change?
Well,
I mean, not if will. How will or if? Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, and that's quite all right. I understand. Judges are limited in what they can and cannot do, because anything that a judge does may reflect on their partiality or impartiality. But I think that there's absolutely room for things in the arts, things to improve the community, and I would love to be involved in the community to the extent that I'm ethically involved in. I'm a people person.
Okay.
I'm someone that wants to continue to engage with others, and being a judge is a different way. Being a lawyer is an advocate.
Okay.
Being a judge, you have to look at the entire picture and think about it and make a decision. You're not one side or another, and I'm used to being on one side.
Okay.
So it's a totally different role.
Okay. And so we know that you may face individuals or cases that will be conflict of interest, and so you have to recuse yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So in our last 2.5 minutes, any final thoughts, shout outs to anyone in particular?
Are we?
Uh-huh.
Oh, my big shout out is to my husband, Brad Broadaway. This is so corny, but he is the wind beneath my wings. I mean, he has been 100% behind me in everything that I have done personally, career-wise. He has helped me when I was a sole practitioner. He was working for a firm, teaching me the law, because law school teaches you the law, but it doesn't teach you how to practice the law. And up to supporting me while in our race against our race for state representative.
Okay.
We had 3 contested races, and he was right there putting up yard signs and filing financial disclosures. He is supporting our family and practicing law, and I'm his law partner. Okay. And he's letting me go out and campaign. And while I was in the state legislature, he took care of our children.
Wow.
And he is kind of a rock star, and absolutely he is my main shout out. Also, my children, who have been very patient with me. And then I've had the support of so many wonderful friends. And without them, this would not be possible.
All
So
right.
I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie.
No, I don't have anything else. So let me check the Facebook Live feed just to be sure.
I guess people were just listening this time around.
I'm probably boring. But,
Well,
you
no,
know.
but I think like we mentioned off air, if you were to win, you're going to be in a very important position. So this is important, not to be taken lightly. It's important that we hear from all of the candidates. And of course, with that, I gotta go ahead and give a disclaimer before we run out of time. KLK and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council does not endorse, support, nor oppose any candidate for office, nor was any compensation provided for this interview. This interview was provided for informational purposes only, but we do encourage you to step into the booth and vote for the candidates of your choice. Early voting starts February 17th. Election day is March 3rd. And of course, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to KLK. But at the top of the noon hour, I will be live on Facebook from the debate between Senator Cooper and Representative Sullivan. You guys have a great and blessed day. This is KLK on 2.5 FM.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Broadcasting from the First National Bank Tower. This is KLEKLP Jonesboro.